I'm your host, Will. In the Star Trek series, we always thought the Borg was the scariest thing to come out of space. But in this video, I'm going to show you a species that gives even the Borg nightmares. In this video, let's talk about species 8472. Let's get to it.
Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile.
Resistance is futile. As a Star Trek fan, you must have heard this line a million times, as it is said by none other than the franchise's most iconic villain, the Borg, who traveled far and beyond places to forcefully assimilate with the local species and absorb all their knowledge and technologies to become the most dominant beings of the universe. But their dominance met with resistance when they came across a species who took them to the cleaners. And if you haven't guessed it from the thumbnail yet, then I am talking about species 8472. And in this video, I'm going to uncover all its anatomical secrets that helped it defeat the Borg. So, let's not waste any more time and get started with the whole thing that you clicked this video for.
There it is again.
Who are species 8472 and how do they fit in the Star Trek lore? Species 8472 are extra-dimensional biological species from fluid space. For those who don't know what a fluidic space is, it's an extra-dimensional realm that contains only an organic fluid. Yes, no stars, no other celestial bodies, just plain fluid flowing over the entire space. They were first introduced in Scorpion Part 1 and Scorpion Part 2, which are technically the 26th episode of Season 3 and first episode of Season 4 of the series. The plot began in this way. The Federation starship, the USS Voyager, was approaching the Borg territory. Suddenly, the crew discovered the Northwest Passage, a narrow but dangerous passage to pass through the region without any direct confrontation with the Borg. But still, Captain Catherine Janeway ordered her troops to stay alert for any sneak attack. Suddenly, Kes started to experience certain disturbing visions related to the killing of the Borg and the destruction of the Voyager. As the crew was near the passage, 15 Borg cubes suddenly rushed past them without attacking. At first, it looked very uncharacteristic from the Borg, but shortly, the scans revealed that those cubes were already wrecked, and in order to find the cause, the crew started inspecting them. Soon they discovered that a bioship was attached to a portion of a Borg's hull, and beside it, there were piles of dead Borg corpses. These corpses looked the same as Kes envisioned a little while ago. Suddenly, the crew heard an alien roar on the cube, but before they could track the source, Kes had another vision of Kim being attacked and quickly cautioned the team to beam out of the ship. But it was too late, and an insect-like creature struck Kim and infected him. And this insect-like creature, my friends, was none other than a member of species 8472. Eventually, Kim was rescued and Voyager was trying to fly from the scene, but the bioship attacked it with a laser shot. The shot inflicted minor damage to the Voyager, and after this, it continued its path towards the Northwest Passage. From the Borg logs, the crew discovered that the alien they encountered was cataloged as species 8472 by the Borg. And now, here is the full picture of what happened before the Voyager arrived. In 2373, the Borg was doing what it was best known for, hunting down new species to assimilate and become the most perfect beings the universe had ever seen or heard of. And this search for perfection led them to fluidic space. But why was the Borg interested in visiting such a space? The answer is species 8472. The Borg became aware of this species and its technological resources and sought to assimilate it to enjoy its gifts. So the Borg forcibly entered the fluidic space by creating quantum singularity interdimensional rifts. But then an anticlimax happened. Species 8472 resisted the Borg's assimilation and became the first species to do so in the long history of the universe. They didn't stop there. The Borg's invasion infuriated species 8472 so much that they released a counterattack on the Borg and drove them back to their realm. They also chased them to their galaxy and destroyed Borg fleets and devastated entire Borg territories. Coming back to the present situation, the Doctor removed the alien infection from Kim's body using a modified Borg nanoprobe and saved his life. Later, when they passed through the Northwest Passage, they again found themselves swarmed between a huge fleet of bioships waiting to take them down. Seeing the face of danger, Janeway took a bold step and decided to form a pact with the Devil. And by that, I mean the Borg. Because now both of them had a common enemy. The Voyager went to a nearby Borg-occupied planet to kickstart the negotiations. She used the modified nanoprobe as the bargaining chip for the Alliance. Suddenly, the fleet of bioships attacked that planet, but the Voyager narrowly escaped from there with the help of a Borg cube. Next, the Borg accepted Janeway's proposal and agreed to give her ship a free space in exchange for those modified nanoprobes. During negotiations, the Borg wanted to establish a neural contact with her for better communications. But Janeway insisted on a representative instead. 7 of 9 was chosen as the representative for the Borg. The talks were interrupted when the bioships again attacked and severely injured Janeway. However, the Borg were able to destroy many bioships and successfully transport Janeway, 7, and the others to the Voyager. After that battle, Janeway needed an emergency neurosurgery, so she transferred the ship's commands to Chakotay and asked him the promise to uphold the Alliance. Later, 7 revealed that Species 8472 had killed millions of Borg and destroyed its territory. She demanded that Chakotay help the Borg to take their revenge on the alien species. But Chakotay refused, as he thought this side quest would deviate from their initial plans. Chakotay revealed his plan to 7 that he would leave her stranded on a planet. But 7 had overridden the ship's system and created a rift, which pulled the Voyager towards fluidic space. 7 revealed that since Chakotay refused to help her kind, she punished them by dragging them to fluidic space, so that they now had to face the fleet of Species 8472 alone. Soon, both of them burst into an argument, but everything cooled down when Janeway returned and took charge. The modified nanoprobes and other large-scale weapons proved to be effective, as it destroyed a number of bioships and forced Species 8472 to return to the realm. Are Species 8472 biologically gifted? Species 8472's physique is just criminally overpowered. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, these tripedal beings move with arrogance and can shake the core of their opponents with their mere presence. Their eyes burn with cruciform pupils that stare straight into your soul, and you beg for death as the only option to escape. Even its face is also disturbingly ugly, as it lacks important features like a mouth, nostrils, or ears. Their skin is a living epidermis, tough and strong enough to protect it from any external harm. At the cellular level, Species 8472 is an absolute biological nightmare. Their single cell carries over 100 times more DNA than a human cell, and on top of that, it is triple helical, not the common double helical one we humans know about. And its DNA is so densely coated by 2374 that the Federation considered it to be the most information-rich genetic structure to be ever recorded. Why couldn't the Borg assimilate with Species 8472? Now, here's the real sauce. Species 8472's immune system is nothing short of a miracle. Chemical agents, biological weapons, advanced technologies, anything, I repeat, anything foreign in their body gets detected and destroyed immediately. This is the same reason why the Borg couldn't assimilate with them in the first place. But as you have seen in both episodes of Scorpion, the modified Borg nanoprobe were advanced enough to slip through their unbeatable godlike immune system and disintegrate within its cells. What is so special about Species 8472's blood? Their blood has polyfluidic compounds, and if you show the guts of taking their cells and infusing them into any host organism, then let me be the first to tell you that the cells of Species 8472 attack and consume the host cells before you know what's happening. How does technology stand against this alien species? Technology. You think technology could take them down? Think again. Their bodies generate a natural bioelectric field that disables sensors and destroys transporter locks. They can even break force fields and withstand the firing from the most lethal weapons from any advanced organization without breaking a sweat. And even if you slow them down with injuries, these sons of Satan regenerate. So, the moral of the story is that Species 8472 is one of the few rare breeds that you must not mess with. And even if you did, make sure you run faster than Bolt or have the escape skills of Houdini. How do Species 8472 move and function in zero gravity? We're done with the biological supremacy of Species 8472, but this one-of-a-kind creature has a few more rabbits in its hat. They can move and fight in zero gravity. But how? Well, if you've taken physics, you will know Newton's third law of motion. That is, for every action, we have an equal and opposite reaction. This principle helps us to walk on the earth as we press our feet against the ground, and the ground exerts the same force back to us due to gravity. But in zero gravity, you don't weigh on anything, so when you exert pressure on the ground, the same force is not exerted back, and therefore you just float, making every move difficult. In species 8472's case, their tripedal legs give them the strength and balance to make instant pivots in gravity and in zero gravity. Moreover, their bodies have a special adhesive grip system that helps them cling to any surface with ease. How do species 8472 get energy? Another interesting thing about them is that they do not need an atmosphere or oxygen to breathe. Possible theories suggest that their body and cells might run on reactive biocompounds that bind, store, and release energy right at the cellular level, without the presence of any respiratory system. A few have also suggested that living in a fluidic space dimension for eternity has made them absorb energy directly from the environment, rather than relying on lungs, as most animals, including us, do. What about the nervous system? Do they share a similar nervous system like the Borg? Okay, understood. Species 8472 doesn't have a respiratory system like us, but do they have a central nervous system? See, they communicate through telepathy and use it with other species, like the Ocampa and the Vulcans, who share the same ability. Remember, in the Scorpion arc, Kes was having visions. That was species 8472 trying to communicate with her telepathically. But make no mistake, it is not the hive mind kind of mental control. They do not have a central body to control their movements as the Borg do. Each individual has their own identity, chain of thoughts, and movement. How do species 8472 reproduce? Now, here's an interesting fact that is going to knock your socks off. Species 8472 can have up to 5 sexes. And I know the first thing to arrive in your naughty little brain is how do they have intercourse then? Until now, nothing has been recorded yet with no familiar pattern. But, according to theory, multiple entities enter a synchronizer state of mind through a biochemical state characterized by neural alignment, bioelectric resonance, and hormonal convergence. Another theory states that the fluid is the womb, and that the individual is selected and configured externally according to need. These are just theories, don't bash me if something else pops out. How do their bioships contain life? Once, 7 of 9 delivered a chilling verdict that species 8472 possessed technology far more advanced than anything the Borg had encountered. She was not wrong though. The ships that species 8472 used were extensions of themselves, as they were made with the same organic matter that these creatures had. So, they had the same resistance to most weapons and also showed the same weakness to the modified nanoprobe. It also had many distinct weapons that no other lifeform, not even the Borg, had seen, and enough firepower to reduce a planet to dust. Now, what we discussed was brute force. Here's something about stealth. Can species 8472 mimic lifeforms? Due to their gifted genetic engineering, they have mastered the art of deception. They can mimic other lifeforms and maintain it through isomorphic injections. But the best part is that their disguise cannot be detected without a molecular scan. Their disguise is so perfect that they even imitate the species' functionality. And if they find their escape inevitable, they just commit cellular suicide by flooding their own bloodstream with a toxin to ensure no one could study and decode their secrets. We have witnessed this ability in episode 4 of season 5, In the Flesh. The Voyager encountered a mysterious space station that absolutely looked like the Starfleet Academy on Earth. First Officer Chakotay and Tactical Officer Tuvok investigated it and soon discovered that everyone looked like real Starfleet officers and cadets. They even saw familiar figures like the Academy groundskeeper, Boothby. Chakotay also met with Commander Valerie Archer and agreed on a future date, reinforcing that the illusion was real. However, their investigation took a dark turn when a cadet caught Chakotay and Tuvok in a restricted area. But the duo stunned that cadet and took him to Voyager for further inspection. When the doctor tried to perform a DNA scan, the cadet abruptly committed suicide. The autopsy revealed that the cadet was not human at all, but was a genetically altered member of species 8472. What's even more shocking was that they were breathing the same atmospheric gases that humans and Vulcans breathe, and that too without lungs, which only indicated one thing, that they could go to any extremes for their disguise. Why couldn't species 8472 become the apex predator of the universe? So, We've hyped up Species 8472 as the Mike Tyson of the Star Trek universe. But they were not immune to limitations and were not considered the perfect apex predator. First of all, they lived in a particular dimension, and trying to hold control of an entirely different dimension is a whole new ballgame. Think of it like humans have the technology to fight underwater or in space, but it will come at a great cost, with significant logistics and discomfort. Secondly, they don't have the mentality to go around stamping their authority on others' business like the Borg. They fought back against the Borg because they were trying to infiltrate their territory, and once they neutralized them, they returned. So, lack of ambition also holds them back from being the perfect apex predator. What happened to Species 8472 after the confrontation with Voyager Borg? For this, we need to return to Episode 4 of Season 5, In the Flesh. After their conflict, Species 8472 went back to the drawing board and reassessed its enemies. They shifted their focus from the Borg to humanity, and considered humanity more dangerous than the Borg due to their successful use of the biomolecular warhead. They were convinced that humans posed them an existential threat, so they constructed multiple terraspheres throughout the Delta Quadrant and artificial environments replicating Earth and Starfleet headquarters. They even altered their appearance through advanced genetic modification to look like Alpha Quadrant humanoids. They wanted to infiltrate Earth, study Starfleet's military capabilities, and anticipate a future invasion. On a social side, some members of the species found living as humanoids deeply unsettling, while others unexpectedly found aspects of these simulated lives enjoyable. In 2375, the Voyager discovered Terrasphere 8 after detecting a false Federation distress signal. Believing a war with Species 8472 may be inevitable, Janeway ordered 7 of 9 to begin preparing biomolecular warheads using Borg nanoprobes, while simultaneously pursuing a diplomatic solution. To better understand their enemy, Chakotay was sent back into a mysterious simulation posing as Starfleet headquarters. Then you know what happened with the cadet and other things. Later, Chakotay reconnected with Valerie, who spoke candidly about the environment. While Chakotay played along, Valerie secretly took a DNA sample and discovered he's human, not a genetically modified being like others. She alerted her superiors, and Chakotay was captured. Boothby believed Starfleet was preparing to invade fluidic space, and Chakotay's spying was more than enough for them to get the proof of malicious intent from the humans. When Voyager arrived to rescue Chakotay, both sides reached a tense standoff. Janeway and Boothby agreed to negotiations. During the talks, Voyager learned the truth that the station was one of several terraspheres used as training and reconnaissance facilities by Species 8472 after their encounter with the Voyager. Species 8472 revealed that they genetically modified themselves to resemble Alpha Quadrant species and recreated Earth environments to keep themselves well prepared against Starfleet's aggression. Recognizing the deadlock, Janeway ordered Voyager to stand down. This act of trust convinced Valerie and Boothby of Starfleet's sincerity. Both sides agreed to a ceasefire and exchanged modified Borg nanoprobes for data on Species 8472's genetic and technological advancements.
Disease! Humans!
What is the endgame of Species 8472, and can the Federation trust them now? After neutralizing the threat, the Voyager departed, and Species 8472 returned to fluidic space, which was their native dimension. And there it was, a massive simulation of Starfleet headquarters created by Species 8472 on a space station. Well, they had a solid plan. Species 8472 were training operatives who would infiltrate Earth, which, frankly, was more like a defense, because they believed that the Federation was planning a destructive war against them. However, here's the catch. Captain Janeway managed to work out a truce with the leader of the facility, and the 8472 operatives agreed to take back this word of peace back to their authorities in fluidic space. But can the Federation really trust them? I mean, think about it. The peace agreement was made only with a single faction of Species 8472, not their entire government. Yet, since they never really launched a full-blown invasion of the Alpha Quadrant later, we can assume that the Federation was taken off from their immediate purge list. What happened to them in Burn? We all know what the Burn was. But for those who might have been living under a rock, It was a 31st century event from Star Trek Discovery which caused dilithium to spontaneously detonate. However, we can be pretty confident that species 8472 was totally unaffected by it. Here's my justification. The burn was a localized event caused by the grieving Futile on a dilithium planet in the Milky Way galaxy and its subspace. And as we know, species 8472 was on a completely different dimension, outside of our regular space and subspace rules. Secondly, they don't rely on any dilithium-based machinery or use it for any purpose, not even their bioships. In fact, species 8472's ships are fully organic, relying on electrodynamic fluid and biological processes for power. As far as traveling is concerned, they do so by opening quantum singularities. But eventually, the Borg got them, but it's not canon. As I mentioned before, species 8472 never becomes a part of Borg assimilation in the main Star Trek Voyager television canon, but interestingly, in one specific comic book story, the Borg do manage to assimilate them. Written by Andrew Stephen Harris and Sean Murphy, a comic titled Borg was released by the IDW publishing house in 2008. This story revolved around how a segment of Borg from the faraway future had finally achieved perfection, which obviously included finding a way to incorporate the highly immune species 8472. They actually pulled a clever trick. The future Borg tried to send a tachyon time wave back through history to retroactively assimilate all DNA. That means all species are basically born Borg. During this brief period, Captain Picard and the crew of the Enterprise E were attacked by a time-traveling Borg hypercube. They ended up encountering drones made from assimilated members of species 8472. Now, I know it's not canon, but it definitely accounts for a fun what-if situation, not gonna lie. Also, it hints at the fact of what the Borg could ideally become if they ever cracked 8472's genetic code. So there you go, guys. Finally, we've reached the end of our video. But before we wrap things up, here's my final thought regarding the species. As a fan of this franchise, I always thought the Borg were the most ruthless and feared thing in the series. But then species 8472 appeared, and with that, I became sure this universe would bring more such species that would be far more powerful than what we had seen. Just take a look. The creature changed the very definition of horror for the Borg and gave them a taste of what cannot be assimilated, even with brute force. Something which we fans will never forget. So, what do you all think? Will we see more species like this in the near future? Or was species 8472 the ultimate being that this universe had to offer? Only time will tell. Until then, we need to play the patience game. Share your views in the comments section down below. Like and share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more such marvelous content. Till then, see you in the next one. Bye!